So yeah, we always think of AI and robots as these infallible things, right? Machines can't do wrong. That's why we create them, but that's not the case always, right?
Never the case.
Yeah.
It's not always the case. It's impossible for that to be the case because human beings create artificial intelligence and machines, and the human beings build implicit bias into these devices. It's almost impossible not to. Even like my iPhone in my hand is slightly too big. It's really designed for a man's hand, you see?
There's no more small iPhones, right? They don't make them like
there was still a small one, but the main one that they were pushing, like the most expensive and the Pro and is this kind of, it's slightly too big because it's really designed for a man's hand. So
we are
bias.
Bad parents to AI.
Unless we become aware of our own bias and prejudice, we are bad parents to AI. So that's my message in my talks is we have to be conscious and deliberate in what we're creating. Because you, as a person developing anything with technology, it's got to be a good design. And if you're not designing with everybody in mind, then it's not good design.
So we need more diversity in
diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, of course. Work Perception IO deals with these issues, right? What are you trying to do with that? How are you trying to let the player?
So Perception IO, my objective, Perception IO, and that's perception input output, which is the technology term, right? Is to make you aware of your own perception. Also make you aware of how bias can be integrated and programmed into networks. So what happens is you go into a space and you're stepping into this environment, which is like a training area for law enforcement of the future. And you are the police officer and you seeing the perpetrator come towards you from the perspective of the camera on your chest. And you come into contact with a black character and a white character. And both is exactly the same what they're doing, but one is black and one is white. And it's going to, the system will monitor your eye tracking and seeing how you interact with the scene, and also monitor your emotions. So if, say, for example, you become angry at the black protagonist, your character will become, as the police officer, will become aggressive and maybe arrest or shoot the person. And maybe if you don't do that for the white person, then maybe you may let the person go. Now, it's two sets of pairs. One is two criminals, and one is someone with mental health. So if you're not kind of aggressive enough to the criminal, you could yourself get shot. And if you're not almost calm enough towards the person with mental health, you may end up shooting someone with mental health. And all these situations have happened. So I want you to become conscious of your own potential implicit bias. That I'm asking you to examine it, because I'm not there in the room, and maybe that whole experience is overwhelming for you. So I'm not saying, hey, you're a bad person, this is your bias. I'm saying, why don't you reflect? Only you can tell me if this is your bias speaking.
But is it a problem if the user comes in with the knowledge of what you want to teach him, right? And he expects what results you want, right? And then it skews his perception of this and his behavior.
I think that then comes down to, that's a valid point. I think that comes down to good storytelling and immersive storytelling in particular, where people are like viscerally.
So it overwhelms them, so they can't control really their reaction.
They're so absorbed in the experience that they lose the sense of pretense, I would say. And it enables their kind of subconscious to respond. Also, just to add, when I was researching this, just two things really quickly, is when you look at these traditional police officer videos where they're having training and someone comes out, and is it a woman with a baby or is it a criminal, and they shoot, and did they shoot them with the baby, did they shoot the criminal? They're being trained for their speedy reaction in a high tense situation, and that uses the cognitive part of their brain when they're doing that. when they're actually in a dangerous environment in real life, they actually don't use the cognitive part, they're using the subconscious part of their brain.
Yeah.
And that's something which they can't control. And that's the part of the brain that my experience accesses.
Yeah.
So it's very deliberately trying to connect with something that you're not aware of and put you in this immersive experience where you kind of like fully immersed.
Yeah, so that's the part that, let's say, a movie can't do for you, right?
Yeah, I would, you know, a good director or DOP may come in and say, oh, I disagree, you know, the cinematography and the sound design. I would just say that what I'm creating is a sensory storytelling experience.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better than a linear film, because you can watch some linear films and it has such a deep, profound effect upon you, and you can watch immersive experience and it may not connect with you. But the tools has the potential of an immersive experience to connect with you neurologically in a different way than a conventional linear film, because I'm using ambisonic sound, which is as close to the human ear as can possibly be. And I'm using scent, so that you're smelling the scent of maybe a riot and a fire. And that there's a set in the middle of the set design around you, and I have an actor who's also in like a riot costume. So you're viscerally like immersed already, but it's still down to a great story.
Last thing, coming from the future, can you tell us what dystopia that is? Is it like an Orwellian nightmare where we are surveillanced all the time, or is it something where we are hooked up into some virtual reality suits all the time, living in a virtual world like Ready Player One? Or is it something totally different, and can we prevent it?
Okay. In the future is multiple different realities. So if you choose that you want to live and exist in a VR world or an MR world or this other kind of immersive experience 24/7, you can do that, because you'll have your friends and your family, your relationships. They even have currency. You could go in there and work and do a day's work and come out. You could just stay in there all the time. So these things do exist. You basically decide what reality you want to live or not live in. But it's really very government and corporate kind of controlled with all the surveillance. And some people check out of that and want to live in these immersive experiences. And other people, they want to change the mass reality that most people live in and take back control. And there's a lot of resistance in the future. There's lots of fighting on different levels and lots of battles that are won and lost. So it's really up to us to kind of be aware of what's to come so that we can fight it better in advance.
So we have to notice the future when it comes.
Well, the first stage is the future isn't something which just you wake up and you're there. There's all these seeds that are sown, and that's what I was showing when I was talking about the smart city, is that it's kind of, you can see some seeds are sown now and they're being cultivated, and we have to rip those out of the ground so they're not cultivated and they don't become like a part of our life. So the future is here today, and your future needs you today.